James Evans Grasshopper Whitney was born November 10, 1857, in Conklin, New York. Whitney would begin his semi-professional career in 1878 with the Binghamton Cricket of the International Association and play alongside future Hall of Famer John Ward. Whitney would continue his semi-professional career in 1879 and would play for 3 teams, including the Omaha Green Stockings of the Northwestern League, the San Francisco Athletics of the California League, and the San Francisco Knickerbockers of the Pacific League, joining his brother Charles Whitney for 2 of those stints. A July 5, 1879 article from the Omaha Evening Bee would state that Big Jim did it with a twist, referring to the hop-step delivery that would eventually coin his nickname Grasshopper. The article would go on to describe Whitney as the best batter and thrower in the club, and he is now coming to the front as one of the most effective pitchers in the West. He disposed of the Davenports in 1 inning almost by himself yesterday by catching a hot fly above his head and stopping 2 balls from the bat and putting them to first base all within 5 minutes. In a San Francisco Chronicle article dated August 9, 1880, it was stated that, owing to an injury received by Jim Whitney in Saturday's game, he was sent to third base, exchanging with brother Charlie, who developed unsuspected possibilities as a pitcher. A reference to the score will show that the Californians could only bat him for 4 base hits. His admirers stated that he is a better pitcher than Jim, and that missing a year's worth of practice in the position has made him a little rusty. He possesses the ability, when occasion requires it, of elongating himself to any required extent, and several times during the game, when a hot liner came within 8 or 9 feet of him, he just let himself out and scooped it in. He is invaluable, also a sort of a human sprinkler, and with the enormous quantity of tobacco he masticates and consumes during the game, he can easily keep the infield well dampened by his expectorations. While Jim would go on to a successful major league career, Charlie would never make it to the big leagues and would appear in stints with various minor league teams until 1889. Whitney would make his major league debut in 1881 for the Boston Red Stockings, playing alongside and being managed by baseball pioneers and future Hall of Famers, brothers Harry and George Wright. Whitney would have one of the most impressive rookie pitching seasons with a 31-33 record, leading the league in wins and losses, a 2.48 ERA, 57 complete games, 6 shutouts, 162 strikeouts, 552.1 innings pitched, while also throwing a league-leading 46 wild pitches, and facing a league-leading 2,301 batters, for a Boston team that would go only 38-45 and finish 6th in the National League, with Whitney accounting for almost 82% of Boston's win total. Whitney's bat would also impress with a .255 average and an OPS plus of 104. In an April 29, 1881 edition of the Omaha Daily Bee, it's reported that Jim Whitney, the former pitcher of the Omahas, is the most talked about of any member of Boston's new team. In a game against Yale College the other day, the latter team failed to score and were completely puzzled by Whitney's pitching, who played the game through without an error. An exchange says, Whitney, Boston's new pitcher, uses 6 feet and 1 inch of body when he prepares to deliver the ball. He is said to throw such a swift ball that it will pass through a batsman's club without knocking it out of his hands. Harry White is now busy preparing plans for a patent catcher to gather in and retain the wild delivery of his untamed California Bonanza. These articles aren't to be confused with another Jim Whitney of Deadwood, South Dakota, of whom it was reported in the Monday, August 8, 1881 edition of the Black Hills Daily Times that Jim Whitney has a mortal cinch on kicking cows. He has an arrangement, patent applied for, that holds the head and the foot that kicks immovable, and when thus arranged, the task of milking becomes an art and a pleasure. In 1882, Whitney would continue his dominance on the mound with a 24-21 record, a 2.41 ERA, 46 complete games, 420 innings pitched, 180 strikeouts, while again leading the league with 29 wild pitches. Whitney would also lead Boston in batting average with an impressive .323 average, 18 doubles, 7 triples, 5 home runs, and 81 hits. In a Tuesday, June 20th, 1882 edition of the Omaha Evening Bee, it was reported that Jim Whitney, the great Boston pitcher, arrived in Omaha this morning. He plays his first game with the UP9 next Saturday afternoon at the new Association Park. It would go on to say, that no one interested in baseball should fail to see Mr. Whitney perform the greatest feat ever accomplished by anyone in curve pitching. It is known as his celebrated curve drop ball, which he will pitch to mystify the boys from over the creek on next Saturday afternoon. 1883 would see Whitney continue to impress with a 37-21 record, a 2.24 ERA, 54 complete games, 2 saves, 514 innings pitched, a league-leading 2.29 FIP, while leading the league in strikeouts with 345 and strikeouts per 9 with 6, while only recording 35 walks, leading the league in strikeout-to-walk ratio with 9.86. Whitney would also continue his solid two-way play with a .281 average, 27 doubles, 10 triples, 5 home runs, a career-high 115 hits, and an OPS plus of 123. In a Thursday, May 31st, 1883 edition of the Boston Globe, it was reported that the Clevelands utterly failed to do anything with Whitney, only making 3 singles. And in that same game, Whitney would record a single and score a run in his team's 3-1 victory. In a Saturday, October 6, 1883 edition of Wilmington, Delaware Daily Gazette, it is reported that Jim Whitney and Paul Radford were each presented with watches at the Boston benefit game for Boston's National League pennant-winning team with a record 63-35. In an important 3-game stretch for the Beaneaters facing the second-place powerhouse Chicago White Stockings, Whitney would hurl 3 complete games while yielding a modest 13 hits, which in turn produced only 2 earned runs. Anson, Kelly, Gore, Pfeffer, and Ed Williamson together mustered a scant 3 safeties. After the series ended, the Beaneaters won 9 of their final 10 to win the title, but the true turning point came in that series against Chicago, when Grasshopper Jim Whitney would dominate the 19th century version of Murderers Row. 1883 would also prove to be a joyous year for Whitney, as he would marry Lillian Haddock. Whitney took to Lillian's brother George and would teach him everything he knew about baseball, and George would go on to have a successful major league career. In 1884, Whitney's achievements on the mound would become almost automatic, with a 23-14 record, a 2.09 ERA, 35 complete games, 336 innings pitched, while leading the league in FIP with 2.37, and strikeout-to-walk ratio of 10-1, recording an impressive 270 strikeouts and only 27 walks, helping Boston to a second-place finish with a 73, 38, and 5 record, losing the pennant to the eventual World Series champion Providence Grays. Whitney would continue hitting well with a .259 average, 17 doubles, 5 triples, 3 home runs, and an OPS plus of 118. The media was critical of Whitney's late-season run as a Sunday, October 5, 1884 edition of the Boston Globe reported the following interview with Red Stockings president Arthur H. Sodden. "You think, then, that the Boston's inability to come out number 1 rests upon Whitney's shoulders? Yes, that is the sum and substance of it. There are other secondary reasons for the loss of the pennant, but the Nine has suffered terribly from Whitney's falling off in the box and at the bat. He started out well, but after a while he became physically unable to pitch as he is capable of. Weakness in the box handicaps the Nine in fielding. In fact, our boys have felt more confidence this season with Charlie Buffington pitching than with Whitney. Then there is his weakness at the bat, which has been heavily felt." 1885 would see Whitney play his final season in Boston for a club that placed 5th with a 46, 66, and 1 record, winning 18 games and leading the league in losses with 32, despite a 2.98 ERA, 50 complete games, and 441.1 innings pitched. Whitney would also lead the league in hits surrendered with 503 and earned runs with 146. But he would also lead the league in strikeout-to-walk ratio with 5.41 to 1, fanning 200 batters while walking only 37. Whitney would also see his hitting numbers tumble, batting .234 with an OPS plus of 86. The dismal season would be perfectly summarized by the following report in the Tuesday, September 22, 1885 edition of the Boston Globe. Jim Whitney said before the game in which the Chicagos beat the Bostons last week that he would win the game if he had to break an arm to do it. He was promised an $80 overcoat by President Day of the New Yorks if he succeeded. Jim didn't win the game, neither did he break his arm, and nothing has been heard about him getting that overcoat. In 1886, Whitney would join the Kansas City Cowboys of the National League. Despite having a less than stellar season on the mound and at the plate, Whitney would be adored by the local press with musings such as this one written in the Kansas City Times on Wednesday, August 25, 1886. The Giants were unable to solve Jim Whitney's curves, who made his debut on his return of full speed and possessed of absolute control of the sphere. And Grasshopper Jim Whitney should be proud of his record yesterday. He pitched a wonderful game and Kansas City was proud of him. Another story, told in the Kansas City Times dated Sunday, August 29, 1886, would go on to say, Grasshopper Jim Whitney was promised a fine silk umbrella yesterday by the Umbrella Baseball Fund if he would shut the Washingtons out, and he went in the box to make the greatest effort of his life and did it. Another article from the Saturday, July 10, 1886 edition of the Detroit Free Press would report that Captain Ward of the New Yorks tells a story about Mickey Welch and Jim Whitney's curves. About a year ago, Jim was in fine form and was pitching for the Bostons against the New Yorks. He fanned out the Giants as fast as they stepped to the plate. The weather was scorching hot, and when Mickey Welch went to the bat, the perspiration was streaming from his face. 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, and out, said the umpire as rapidly as Jim Whitney shot the ball over the plate. Mickey returned to the bench, and as he took his seat beside Johnny Ward, he said, I was hot when I went to bat, but Whitney put the ball in so fast that the breeze it made cooled me off and I feel splendid. Despite the praise from the press, Whitney would go 12-32 for the second to last place Cowboys, with an ERA of 4.49, 42 complete games, 393 innings pitched, 167 strikeouts, while batting .239 with 59 hits in 67 games. Whitney's unpredictable arm would produce 29 wild pitches that year, one of which would strike Washington Nationals slugger Paul Hines in the head and render him deaf for the rest of his life. 1887 would see Whitney join Hines on the Washington Nationals. Whitney would have a bounce-back season with a 24-21 record for the 7th place Nationals, earning a 3.22 ERA, 46 complete games, and 404 innings pitched, while batting .264 with an OPS plus of 104. 1888 would again see Whitney with the Washington Nationals going 18-21 for the last place team, with an ERA of 3.05, with 37 complete games and 325 innings pitched, while batting only .170 and 141 at-bats. It was during this season that it was reported in the Chicago Tribune that Bill Coon was a Sandow in strength, and the whole force of his body backed up that hit. Before Whitney could step aside or duck, the ball crashed into his chest, and he fell forward, prone on his stomach. He was carried off the field, and a few days later, hemorrhage of the lungs set in. In a Sunday, October 14, 1888 edition of the Philadelphia Times, it was reported that Whitney will take his family to California this winter, and unless his health improves, it is very doubtful if he pitches next season. This injury would prove to be the professional undoing of Whitney, as in 1889 he attempted a comeback with the Indianapolis Hoosiers after a bitter salary dispute with the Nationals, and would pitch only 70 innings, going 2-7 while still registering 7 complete games, and striking out only 16 with an ERA of 6.81, while batting an impressive .375 over 32 at-bats. The incredible career workload and severe injury from the previous season took its toll on Whitney, as it was reported by the Philadelphia Times on Saturday, February 16, 1889, that Whitney only pitched 5 innings. He was knocked out of the box. He tried fast curves and slow twisters on the home lads, but they pounded both with ease, and when they had made 16 hits, including 3 two-baggers and 2 three-basers, Long Jim went to first base. In 1890, Whitney would have one last shot in the big leagues in a stint with the Philadelphia Athletics of the American Association. Whitney would pitch only 40 innings for the Athletics, going 2-2 with an ERA of 5.18 and batting .238 in 21 plate appearances. In a Thursday, July 17, 1890 edition of the St. Louis Globe-Democrat, it was reported that Grasshopper Jim Whitney, at one time probably the best pitcher in the country, when a few years back he used to puzzle the heavy league hitters who faced him on the Bostons, stood 6'2" in the box at Sportsman's Park yesterday and fired the ball to the batters of the St. Louis Browns. adding that the old veteran gets an idea of how hard the Browns can hit. At this point in 1891, it is reported that Whitney had been battling consumption for 2 years. Some would also speculate that it was not consumption, but rather the injury sustained from Coons line drive in 1888. In any case, it would prove to be too much for Whitney, as he would die on May 21, 1891, in Binghamton, New York, at the age of 33, and would be interred in the Spring Forest Cemetery in Binghamton, New York. Grasshopper Jim Whitney brought a distinctive flair to pitching in the 19th century. With his unique delivery, he would finish in the top 10 for ERA 5 times, wins 6 times, strikeouts 6 times, complete games 7 times, shutouts 6 times, and is 22nd all-time with 377 complete games, while also displaying incredible hitting prowess with a top 10 finish in batting average, on-base percentage, and 2 top 10 finishes in home runs. Jim Whitney's skills on the diamond were unquestionable, his impact immeasurable, and his legacy undeniable.